My name is Laura, and I lost my husband David 2 years ago. We've been married for 12 beautiful years, 12 years of laughter, struggle, growth, and deep love. He was the kind of man who could light up a room with his calm confidence, and even during his illness, he smiled through the pain. When he passed away after a long battle with cancer, I thought the hardest part of my life was over. I was wrong. Because what came next wasn't grief, it was betrayal. It started just a few days after the funeral. I was sitting in our living room, surrounded by sympathy cards and fading flowers, when David's older brother, Mark, showed up with his wife. His expression wasn't one of compassion, it was calculation. "Laura," he said stiffly, "we need to discuss the estate." I frowned, still numb. "The estate?" "Mark, I just buried my husband." He gave me a thin smile. "I know, and we're sorry. But David's assets belong to the family. You know how things work." I blinked, trying to process his words. "What are you talking about? David and I built this life together. Everything we have, we earned." Mark exchanged a look with his wife. David was always loyal to his blood. The house, the business, the accounts, they're all part of the family inheritance. I felt my heart race. "There's a will," I said. David made sure of it. Mark shrugged. "Then you won't mind showing it to us." That night, I went through every drawer, folder, and file in the house, but I couldn't find the will. It was gone. I remembered David saying he'd given the lawyer a copy, but I didn't have their contact saved anywhere. My mind spun with panic. A few days later, I got a call from Mark's lawyer, not mine. He claimed that since there was no legal documentation of ownership, David's assets defaulted to his family's name. They even demanded I vacate the house within 30 days. For weeks, I lived in a haze of fear and anger. David and I had built that house together. I helped him run his small woodworking business, managed the accounts, and supported him through everything. And now they wanted to erase me, to take everything we had shared as if I were a stranger. But I wasn't going to let them. David always told me, "You're stronger than you think, Laura." So, I decided to prove him right. The first thing I did was contact Evelyn, an old friend of David's and a lawyer who had attended the funeral. I explained everything. She listened quietly and then asked me a question that changed everything. "Did David ever mention a safe deposit box?" I froze. He had, years ago, when we first bought the house. He said it was for emergencies only. My hands trembled as I called the bank the next morning. Sure enough, there was a box registered in his name and mine. When I opened it with Evelyn by my side, my knees almost gave out. Inside was a sealed envelope labeled "For Laura." I unfolded the papers inside and there it was, David's original, notarized will, signed 6 months before he died. My eyes filled with tears as I read it. Not only had he left me everything, the house, the business, the savings, but he'd also included a handwritten note: "If they ever try to take what's ours, don't fight with anger. Fight with truth. I trust you." Evelyn's eyes lit up. "This is airtight, Laura. They don't have a case." A week later, we filed the will in court. When Mark found out, he called me, furious. "You think this changes anything?" he shouted. "You're not part of this family." I took a deep breath. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'm not your family. I was David's. And that's all that matters." Then I hung up. During the court hearing, Mark and his lawyer tried to argue that the will was fabricated. But David had been meticulous. Every signature was verified, every asset clearly documented. Evelyn presented financial records showing that I had co-managed the business for years. The judge barely needed an hour to decide, everything legally belonged to me. When the verdict was read, I looked at Mark. The arrogance was gone. All that remained was shock. As we left the courtroom, he muttered, "You always were a manipulative woman." I turned to him and said calmly, "No, Mark. I was the woman your brother loved, and the one who believed in him when no one else did. After that, I sold the woodworking business, keeping only one of David's handcrafted chairs, the one he made for me on our 5th anniversary. I donated a large portion of the money to the cancer foundation that supported us through his illness. The rest, I used to start a small design studio, something David had always encouraged me to do. Months later, I got a letter from Mark's wife. She apologized for everything, said she hadn't realized how far Mark was willing to go, and that she admired how I handled everything with dignity. I never responded, but I appreciated her words. Now, every morning when I sit in that old chair by the window, I think of David's note, "Don't fight with anger. Fight with truth." I realize he wasn't just talking about property or money. He was reminding me that strength doesn't always roar, sometimes, it speaks softly through resilience and calm conviction. They thought they could strip me of everything I had. What they didn't know was that David had already given me something far more powerful than wealth, the courage to stand alone. And that was something they could never take away.